business. Like Vince kind of took the words right out of my mouth as I was going to say them. I come from the UB core program, and one thing that I found with that program is the value in working with your peers and being in a room. I'm not discriminating by any means, but I'm one of the younger people in the room, and the level of experience and knowledge that I see that looks around, I hope to absorb as much of that as possible. And the whole point of not selling and being a part of the group to help learn, but also help anybody with any information that's out there is the mentality that I have, and that's what I've experienced so far, and that's what I was looking for in to be around a group of people like this group. So that being said, I'll start with personal life. I was born in 1985 at Children's Hospital in Buffalo. Both my parents grew up in the Bailey and Kensington area of Buffalo. So a large family. My mom was one of 7 and my dad was one of 4. Family parties were always large and very loud. That being said, coming from that area, and we didn't have much growing up, and I'm sure they're not going to claim sob stories or anything like that, but it was definitely challenging at times, and some of the things that I saw as a kid helped drive what I have now, and the way I wanted to live. Some of the pain that I saw my mom go through for shopping for a family of 4, I never wanted to have my wife or children see. So that was a big driver of keeping me busy and motivated to work. My parents did make a good choice, I think, to move to Amherst and put us in a student-owned school district when I was younger. There's 4 of us. There's a picture of my brothers and sisters there that we were able to take. I'm the oldest of 4. And after that, met my wife in 2009, Jacqueline. After a year, I proposed to her, finding out she was the one for me. We were married 2 years later after meeting, and she has been the single biggest support person that I have. Personally, business-wise, and everything. It's the value of having a supportive person to be with. I think there's no monetary value or any value to put on it. It's just that important. My son, Michael, was born on May 22nd, 2013. He's now starting his first year at Clarence Middle School. And my daughter, my stepdaughter, Ryan, she's 19 and she's going into her sophomore year at Buff State. It's my son as a baby, and then a couple weeks ago we went to New York City. It was 95 degrees, so it's pretty interesting trip. But we were able to see a couple nice things. He was very interested in the 9/11 memorial, which was pretty cool because he wasn't old enough to see what happened, and that was a big part of our history, I think. And then there's my wife and my daughter at a wedding. She's a lot bigger than that now. Starting off, my first job was a paper boy at the Buffalo News, which is a very labor-intensive job if you think about it. How much you have to work and the commitment you have to do every day. After that, from the age of 12 to 18 or so, I worked for my father's painting company. Did a lot of commercial painting work and parking ramps and city pools. So just like everybody in construction, I would drive by and say, I painted that, or I did that. After 13 years with my wife, she doesn't hear it anymore. So it's just other jobs I had when I was younger, worked at Wilson Farms as a cashier. I was a host at Bob Evans and did some warehouse work for a medical supply company. It was all throughout high school. And shortly after that, graduating high school, I started work at HSBC Mortgage at night, and I was going to Medai College during the day. And then after my first semester at Medai College, I realized that, we didn't have very much money growing up, so that means I don't have a college fund set up, and school is expensive. So luckily I was able to go to ECC, and actually they paid me to go. That's how little we made, so that was helpful. So I was going to school at night, going to school during the day and working at night, and then they offered me a full-time job, so I flip-flopped that and was going to school at night. 2006, I became a mortgage underwriter, and then I kind of liked that job, but side work and stuff, working in an office really is not for me. 2008 happened, they shut down my entire department. It was the first of 225 layoffs, and there was another 200, I think. So the mortgage industry was affected quite a bit back then. I bounced around a little bit, went to Bank of America for 6 months, and then Department of Veterans Affairs for an additional 9 months, where I realized working for government in an office was definitely not for me. So in 2010, I decided to pursue full-time construction work and try and help my dad grow his business. There's a lot of issues that I saw. 2010 and a half, I learned that my father was not a good business partner. many reasons why, and unfortunately, some people I think are just not cut out to run a business. Whether you're good and you can sell or anything, it's more than just talking. It's a difficult thing. So a couple months later, I decided to form my own business, like the Lignos DBA MTL contract. Not realizing how important legal structures and everything were back then, so that's the way I started. In the early years, worked independently on my own for about a year, performed as much work as I could, really anything that would keep any money coming in. A lot of laminate flooring, painting, small jobs, would take what I could. Then started to take on bigger and bigger jobs as I felt confident to do so. Each one was a little bit scary because there was always stuff I didn't experience, and just found the ways to get them done. A lot of times at the expense of not making enough money, but everybody knows what that's like at some point. I started taking on bigger jobs, from kitchen and bathroom models. We would start doing additions. 2013 and full house remodels. Again, lots to learn, but it helped get where I am today. So in 2015, my sales were about $1 million, which I thought was great for, I was 26, I think, at the time. I'm sorry, I was 29, and I thought that was a great number. I was feeling pretty good about stuff, and realized that I have a couple of bigger jobs coming up, but I have 3 guys, and it just was not good, and I couldn't find any help. And looking around, I'm like, it's got to be me because I'm young, and I don't know if still people want to come work for a younger guy starting relatively new business. So a former employee of mine actually worked at a commercial construction company locally called Hayes Construction. Husband and wife owned business, and they're great people, and it was a wonderful experience. So after about 3 months of telling them no, I'm not interested in working for anybody else, my wife and I had a conversation and decided that a full-time job with them would reduce my stress and reduce hours and keep the stress of running my own business a little bit lower. And that lasted about 3 months. That being said, I ended up working at Hayes for 5.5 years. I started as a general superintendent, they called it, so I was in charge of our field staff, about 12 to 15 people, and taking over some projects. And that's really where, within the first few months, I started to take on the work as if it were my own, because that's the only way I know how to operate. And therefore, the hours and the stress, everything kept increasing more and more, so it really didn't matter whose t-shirt I wore, as I work hard to work hard. After a year or 2 years, I transitioned into a full-time superintendent and then took on more project management work. From there, I supervised and managed multiple projects throughout Erie County. And in 2019, I was promoted to Vice President of Construction. So I had project managers and superintendents under me, which was a lot because I was still managing a couple of our bigger construction projects that we had and more difficult ones. A couple of the things that I did with Hayes, put a little disclaimer because I still wore their shirt while I was with, so I wanted to be respectful to that. Got to build a 11,000 square foot custom house in Lafayette and Buffalo. The neighborhood was not happy. We were tearing down the existing house, but it had happened. It was falling. It was going to be down anyway. That being said, it was a custom project. $2.5 million in 2018 dollars, so it would be up there today. 26-unit apartment building at the corner of Colvin and Tacoma, where we had to keep the existing church tower where the church burned down around it, but that stayed, so that was fun and interesting. I actually climbed up to the top, and it was pretty interesting up there. The whole 120-year-old stairwell was not fun. And then a bigger project was the West End townhomes that we partnered with Simonelli Real Estate on. They're actually still being built. COVID definitely made a big impact on that project. Made it very challenging for us as a contractor. They also spent 4 years trying to get the project off the ground with multiple revisions to the project and changing views and sight lines and stuff. But they finally got approval, and that was a big part of getting the contract for that project and getting it off the ground. And for the first year, I was the supervisor and project manager, which was a lot, in addition to some other stuff. But there's me and Amber Holycross, her name is now, is vice president at Lendl. She was the Simonelli manager, and we're in business first there, showing the project. So that was the biggest project that I've taken on in construction. From then, in 2020, I decided to leave Hayes Construction. Actually went through the UB CEO program with the intent of using that experience to help become the managing partner of Hayes. You know, husband and wife owners wanted to eventually step back, and they pegged me to be the guy to do that, which was a great honor, and I took that wholeheartedly and wanted to do everything in my power to make sure it was a success. So going through the UB CEO program was a big driver of that, and it helped me help the business as much as possible. But then it also helped me see that for my ultimate goals, I needed to have full control over the business that was running. And when somebody else starts a business, that's never going to happen. So it was a very difficult decision. It became family to me, and didn't want to do anything that would hurt that business. So I essentially said, I'll be leaving, but I will stay as long as you want. I didn't give a time frame. If it's 6 months, it'll be 6 months. It ended up being about 3 or so to help square away some of the stuff I was finishing up. And I'll always be forever grateful and appreciative of the time that I spent there, because I learned an astronomical amount, and I'll use that to be as successful as possible in life and business. So after that came on, I said, so armed with a new sense of freedom and unlimited room for growth now, I made a plan to follow my passion of business development and construction. I had my first job in 4 days, which was redoing some laminate flooring at somebody's house. So it was a little step back from a $16 million project, tearing up the carpet. I took a step back and said, what am I doing? But every day I woke up and I was happy to go there, and the customer was happy to have the work done. So the past 5 years in construction has been a high demand, and luckily I was able to build a relationship with a lot of different people, architects, designers, and just general customers. So once the word out that I was open for business, I was able to build a backlog of about 6 to 12 months of work pretty quickly, which kind of countered my original plan to work for about a year on my own before I was taking on employees. But with the amount of work that I had, I didn't think that was a good idea. So I started to hire. And I remember in 2006 or 7, I can put an ad on Craigslist for a carpenter, and I remember specifically I had about 40 calls within the first 3 hours. I couldn't even shop at Home Depot because the phone was ringing so much that everybody wanted a job. So I thought, okay, this will be great. I'll spend a little bit more money on Indeed and get some great people. Didn't happen at all. And I knew that was going to be a little bit of a challenge from hiring people at Hayes, and which what I didn't say before is after I made the move to Hayes and realized that finding manpower was difficult, it was a little bit of a relief because I was with an established business who's been around for years, and I could pay a little bit more and still couldn't find people. So I was like, okay, well, I'm a little bit more confident that the problem isn't only me, as a young business and stuff, so that was a little bit reassuring, but it still doesn't solve the problem. So, I realized and talked to people, what is happening? Why is this so difficult? And is this really the state of the construction industry? Which, now knowing some facts, it is. Growing a business with limited resources is difficult. No shortage of work, my biggest obstacle, and still is limited manpower available willing to work. For every 7 skilled trades workers that retire, there's only 1 entering the workforce. And there's a lot of reasons why, but I vividly remember being in high school telling my counselor and teacher that I wanted to go to the BOCES program for trades and carpentry, and they looked me dead in the face and said, Mike, that's for kids who can't cut it in college. And that was 2002, 2001, and created a 10-year skills gap for this problem that we have. And so I blame the education system a lot on forcing college on a lot of people that it might not be the right fit for. And now I think that times have changed a bit, and there's a lot of information guiding students to say that college is an investment in yourself rather than it's a mandatory thing for success. But I think there's still a lot of work to go. So that being said, in 2021 and 23, pushed through, took on a lot of projects with a lot of the available workforce that I could get, and unfortunately sacrificed a lot of profit to make sure that the quality work and the customer service was there for the customer. A lot of rework, a lot of things that got done that ate up the profit on the job, which isn't great for me. I think I went 8 weeks without a paycheck one time. This is earlier on, but I had one employee and I needed to make sure that they got paid, and that was the most important thing to me. Which goes back to one of the things I learned from my dad is if somebody works hard for you, you don't mess with their money. And it's one of the reasons why I only made it 5 months with him, because he didn't feel the same. So it's kind of it's a staple to me, and like I said, it's no matter what, and payroll is one of the biggest burdens on a business, weekly cash flow, and like I said, if that's a struggle for me to make sure, I would rather not eat than make sure one of my employees who worked hard didn't. And luckily that hasn't been an issue, but it was in the past. So work is still getting done. One thing I found is that with the real estate market the way it is, people just cannot find a home that they're happy with within their budget or even close. And that's still the past few years, and that's still true today. This project in Snyder is it was a 1,700 square foot ranch, and it's converting into a 4,200 square foot 6-bedroom house. And with a customer with a $500,000 budget, they still couldn't find a home that worked for them, so they decided to modify the one that they had, which is good for us. Now, one thing I'm very happy to say is that the team that I've had for the past 6 months or so, and then some of these guys are 3 years and 2-year employees, but we're growing, and it's the best crew that I've had, and I think that we're definitely on the right path. So I'm doing everything to keep them and keep them happy, and it's the tough pill to swallow, knowing that how much money somebody makes. It's always in construction. It was $20 an hour was the standard, then 25. Now $30 an hour is the standard for somebody really who has a skill to just show up. It's a lot of money. And I think about back when I made $30 an hour and started, the amount of responsibility that I took on for that is astronomically higher than what these guys will make today. But they still show up and they do the work, and I'm happy to pay it because it's also supporting their life and their family, and that's really the core goal of owning a business is to help support the people around me and build them up. We recently had one of the guys made a comment in our team meeting, actually, when we took this picture. A nice car drove by, and like, Mike, when are you gonna get a car like that? And I said, that's not in the plan right now, because instead of spending $200,000 on a Maserati, I would rather buy everybody a work truck to drive to work with. Like, that's the investment in the business that my mentality has, and I hope that pays off long term. Some of the projects that we've taken on over the past few years this is a full rehab project in Auburn and Buffalo. It's a historic preservation job, mainly for the exterior stuff. But it was really a full gut for the inside and open it up. We were able to save and restore some of the hardwood floors that were there because there is a lot of beautiful things in a lot of older houses. A lot of bathrooms we've done. Here's pictures of some of them. It's actually my son as a child taking his bath in the upper left-hand corner. So that was one thing that we really take pride on with my manpower is we'll do anything and everything to take a job and to get it to finish. But on these bigger ones, we'll subcontract framing packages and roofing because those are details and production work that I don't want my guys to thrive with. I want them to be as skilled and dedicated to finishing quality as possible. And I will happily pay my finished carpenters to do some framing. It'll take a little bit longer. It's going to be straight. I'm not going to take the framer and have them do some trim because there's not enough caulk in the world to fill those gaps. Another page of bathrooms. Some of these are kind of cool. Lower right-hand corner is a steam shower with body sprays and jets and colors and aromatherapy, steam and stuff like that. The one next to it's about 12 feet across. So they're big and cool projects. Some kitchen projects that we've done. So it's not all bigger, but these are some of the pictures that we have. Another part of my business is MTL development. So one of my goals is to take my construction business and work for my development company. I'll show you some projects that we've done with that. But we own and manage both short-term and long-term rental properties in Buffalo. The goal is to purchase property with significant rehab to full gut. And the reason I like to do that is because then I can rebuild it the way I want, and for everything is done with the intent to manage and keep the property. So, you know, we do things right. I think there's a lot of negative work that gets done in the area, and you know, things might look good for pictures, but as soon as you move into a house that was with the intent to flip, you realize that it was not the greatest choice. And you know, with mine, I want to make sure that we can always know what needs to get fixed and how it was done, and you know, my guys can go in and we can fix something for a tenant quickly rather than having to cover it up or put more paint and caulk on it because it wasn't done fast just to get it ready for rent. Looking for another project. Talked to Bill quite a bit. There's a shortage of available projects in the area, unfortunately. And so if anybody knows of anything, you know, whether it's a two-family residence or a 10,000 square foot building, I'd like to take a look at it because we're ready to go for another one. Within that, here's a couple of the projects that we've done. One on Prospect Ave downtown. This house was pretty gross when I bought it. I couldn't believe people were actually living in it. There was no running water to the place. There was just enough of a drip that they could fill buckets to use for bathing and stuff. It was tough. And it was one of the few houses in the area that was really falling apart. So you can see in the right-hand picture, I took apart the floor systems and everything. And instead of a 9-foot ceiling on the first floor and 7 foot on the second, I took them down and made them both 8 feet. And it was just much better use of the space. This property runs as a full-time Airbnb, which is downtown, walking distance to City Hall and the Statler and Curtis hotels, so it does really well there. But it came out pretty good.
You would never think that's the same building.
Yeah, that's the hope and the goal.
That's very impressive.
Appreciate it. Maryland Ave, similar, it's a few blocks down from Prospect. Same deal. This was an older lady who lived there for 50, 60 years. Her family owned the house and just couldn't keep up with it. So we took it and took it apart. And same thing. It's a full-time Airbnb down there. What's nice about these is they're two-family homes, so you can rent the upper, the lower, or you can rent the full package of the whole house. So we get a lot of parties. Had a lot of football players and teams and cheerleaders and stuff coming in for Bills games and things like that. So that's been cool. But they're nice, and we get a lot of positive reviews. That going back to say how important my wife is. She's the one who actually manages the day-to-day business of the Airbnbs, because that's work that I want no part of whatsoever. She talked me into doing it and realized that they make about 4 to 5 times more than the long-term rental rate. So these specific properties do really well. Another project that I have, which is not an Airbnb, I bought a place on Linwood Ave in Buffalo. It was an off-market sale, and a friend of mine said, "Hey, I have this. Do you want to take a look at it?" And I drove down. I said, "I love this street. I love the house. I don't have any money to do this, so I'll have to figure it out." So I ended up, because I had bought Maryland prior to, and then this came for sale, and I'm like, you know what, it's a bit of a risk, but I'm going to figure out a way to do it. So I ended up working out a deal. The owner held some of the mortgage for me while I could find construction money to fix the place. And after a year and a lot of interest payments, I was able to find the money to do that, and we got to work. One thing that I did make the mistake of was realizing that manpower was a big concern, and our construction sales were good, and my construction clients had to take precedence over my own properties. So they ended up sitting for a while because there just wasn't enough manpower to do it. So again, a lot of interest payments and a lot of carrying costs that I didn't think of, but the end result is pretty nice. There's a picture of me that Business First did a little article about it. Trying to make them as nice as possible. They're big units, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, about 2,000 square feet apiece. So the project as a whole is pretty profitable, but then also qualified for commercial preservation tax credits, which just came through not too long ago. So that was a very nice day when that cash deposit went into the account. But these are the type of projects that I'm after, and we try and do is good work that we can do.
Is that laminate or hardwood?
It's all hardwood.
Is it tiger?
No, it's 2 1/4 oak.
Nice.
Yeah, I've been a part of a lot of big preservation projects when I was with Hayes, and the flooring selection was never a question, but for some reason on my project they wanted me to match the original flooring, which is not what I wanted to do. And about 9 million hardwood flooring nails later, we finally got it. So, transitioning a little bit more about me, I joined the board recently to Compeer, which is a mental health and wellness not-for-profit in Kenmore. They provide mental health services to a bunch of different groups and individuals through peer pairing. You can almost compare it to like a big brother, big sister type of thing, where if you have somebody in need or in need of friendship, they have volunteers who spend some time with them. It could be kids to kids, adults to adults, but they're in multiple high schools in the area, which, based on recent budget cuts, 2 schools now cannot afford to have Compeer in the program, which is difficult because in high school they really spend a lot of time with teenage girls, and that's a difficult thing to be going through, I think. I don't know personally, but I've seen a lot, and having a teenage daughter, I know that there's a lot of challenges, and they've had a lot of success with helping people through these tough times. So that was one of the reasons why I joined. Sherry Alvarez, who was a former classmate of mine, actually became the CEO of Compeer as we went through the program, and take some pride in to say that we helped her get that role, which she's done an amazing job for the past year and a half or so in that, and the business is growing. The not-for-profit is growing tremendously, and just able to help them secure a $500,000 grant to help renovate the building that they have in Kenmore. It's got water problems, and when it rains, it's a challenge. So that's definitely, take some pride in that. Also, mental health is something that I was very honest with Sherry when I asked to join the board. She asked me why, and I had to explain why that I wanted to. And growing up, mental health was a big issue in life, and a lot of family members, my mom, dad especially, had a lot of issues growing up, and I had a different perception of the need for mental health help, and being in this organization has helped bring more of it to light, and how important it is for people to get a little bit of time and attention and help with what they're going through, because you can't judge them on, we don't know what their day-to-day is and how difficult it can be for them. That being said, a little bit of a pitch is a golf tournament in September. It's Pembroke Golf Club. I forget the name, I'm sorry, I forgot. So if anybody's interested in that, donations go to the school or go to the organization, and it's a fun time for sure. And in conclusion, I want to thank you again for the opportunity to be a part of the group. Be in a room with so many successful people and great minds, I think is a great. I'm honored to be in the room with everybody here, and I hope to absorb as much information and at any point be able to help anybody with anything that I've learned along the way. And again, going back, my goals for MBA is to be a resource on any level for everybody in the room, for any information that I can provide at any time. And then the goal of my company is to provide the best customer service and highest quality product, no matter what the project is. We take our core employees and want to do whatever it takes to build up their lives and make them buy into the business mentality of we'll make everybody around us better for the greater good. And that's my last slide. So thanks again, and if anybody's got any questions about me or the business, I guess I'll open it up and fire away. Scott.
First of all, very impressive what you've done.
Thank you.
And the quality of working and seeing those pictures is awesome.
Pictures look good. Unfortunately, I'm not the greatest photographer or slide projector, but the business in general has become more of the passion and drive for me to keep going, and construction is the way that I know how to do that. It's a tough business to be in because I have to sell the service and then we have to do the service, which is not the easiest thing. But to see a homeowner or a business owner take what we've done for them and enjoy it and better their life, that's one of the biggest rewards that I get for the projects. And now being in a leadership role, I'm able to point that appreciation to the guys that are actually doing it and swinging the hammer. So that's something, I guess that's a selfish benefit, but I also really take pride into being able to do that because it feels good when somebody says that.
My question is, have you had any success hiring from Northland?
No. I've tried a little bit, and there's been a couple other organizations I've tried with, and there just hasn't been good fits, I guess. Anybody else?
A quick question for you. If you're looking at an 8 or 12 unit apartment complex as a new build, what can you expect to pay per square foot in a project like that, approximately?
250,
Okay.
200 to 250.
I smell a possible client.
Yeah, it's expensive to build now.
Yeah.
Mike, I share your pain with getting help to do the house, as everyone knows here. I've been working on my house for quite a while now. And, with the pandemic, everything went to a stop for a while. And then the following year it was go home and pretend you don't have a job and play video games and collect the unemployment. I literally had framers completely just not come in the next day, wouldn't return phone calls, texts, nothing, just disappeared,
Yeah.
Completely disappeared. And it was just very difficult to find the next people to come in, especially because they don't want to rework somebody else's work. So it's been very challenging, so I commend you on bringing people that you have together.
The amount of stories, and they're no different than anybody in the room has experienced, I think, with just craziness between employees and available people. But because there's been so many customers and people looking for work, there's an influx of guys who are great employees but want to start their own business. It's a really challenging thing for me because that's what I did. I mean, you leave a job or you take the risk and you want to do it. The problem is there's a lot of people that they're not cut out to do that, and they're great employees that are now not available as workforce. So that's one of the challenges, and every year since 2018 or so, I've been saying, okay, well, it would always be an influx of that happening in the spring because summer work and guys go want to start their own business, do roofing, whatever they can do. And then by winter time, it slows down, and then they're looking for a job again. Unfortunately, that cycle has now extended to a year to 2 years, and they really don't go back looking for a job until tax time hits and insurance catches up with them, because there's enough work for them to kind of float those things, and cash flow doesn't become an issue. But it does catch up. It's just now taking 2 to 3 years rather than 6 months. So again, making it more difficult.
I have a little story recently happened to us recently with Manpower. My wife hired a landscaping firm to come in, and she talked to people that just like us in terms of what English language skill. So what happens the day that people that are starting, all these people show up, and they're from different countries. Several from Sri Lanka, several from others, and none of them could speak English. One lead person could speak a little English. Now they couldn't speak each other's languages either. So they all had cell phones. They all had cell phones right there, and they were constantly standing there, and they used translation services between themselves, right? All day long. The guy wanted to take some mulch and put it over there, and he had to go into his computer and cell phone and tell him what he wanted, and then have it translated to the other guy's language, and they would show it. That was really, I couldn't believe it.
It's unfortunately a necessity at times, but it's also a huge killer of production. Because then watching a crew that knows what the next person is going to do is like watching an orchestra in my mind. I've seen it a few times and been envious of other crews, and then to see my guys have flashes of it, it's the most encouraging feeling. But yeah, that's a challenge too.
Have you been able to go into other industries to recruit? Like you described, you were working in an office doing mortgages, you're not anymore. Is there any opportunity for you to go find people who are unhappy in a different career?
There is. The biggest challenge I've had with that is the need to get stuff done now and the skill level that it takes to do that. My hope is I've partnered, there's a organization in Buffalo that provides apprentices and actually provides they pay 50% of their salary essentially to come work for you. And I've been back and forth with them a little bit, and over the next year or so I really hope to be able to take on some younger people or people new to the industry, because I feel like I have some of the right people that can train them and work with them, because the way the business is going, I can't spend that much time physically showing them what to do when we have 4 or 5 jobs running at a time. So the short answer is there's been no success with that yet, but it's definitely part of the plan.
Your Airbnb is beautiful, by the way.
Thank you.
How many weeks a year are you running that right now? And what's kind of industry standard for?
We are Airbnb. There's a couple different programs. We are about 50% higher than the majority of the buildings in Buffalo. One, because they're new and they look nice in pictures and stuff. Also, the city is finally doing a little bit of a crackdown on unlicensed Airbnbs, which is
Good for you. That's good for you, right?
It is, and it's been frustrating because there's the 200% influx in Airbnbs in the past couple of years, and there's a lot of places that aren't safe for people to be in. They take nice pictures, but they're really not right to be in there. So yeah, it's a standard of business, though. I mean, in construction especially, I'm never going to compete with the unlicensed person who owns a truck and a hammer and has no insurance, but that's not the customers that I want anyway.
You just have the one Airbnb?
Two.
How are you doing with them?
They, like I said, they do about 4 times as much as what short-term rental would bring in. So they do pretty well.
So I've got 3 Airbnbs, and I would agree with that.
Yeah.
What's the occupancy rate on your Airbnbs?
It's about 40%. Sorry, I didn't answer that. It's about 40 to 50% overall, which, like I said, still brings in that revenue.
So do you have a minimum stay?
Yes.
What is it?
It's 2 days. The reason
Your
I'm
competitors in the same group here.
He's in the north one.
They're different areas, I think we're safe.
It's a subcategory, Paul, let's not go there.
They're talking, how did they both do in the group?
It's 2 days.
It's 2 days. The reason I smirk a little bit is because during football season, I will take one night stays because I've made $1,000 a night profit for somebody coming in from Toronto for a Bills game, or the Vikings cheerleaders and or players' wives staying at the place and they only want to stay for a day. So I do violate my rules with the city about 2 day stays 8 times a year.
But you're allowed to do
But the money